Welcome to this explainer. Okay, today we are diving headfirst into what is honestly the ultimate technological whodunit of the modern era. We're going to systematically break down the facts, the hard data, and the real technical realities to unravel the absolute greatest secret of the digital age. It's literally the billion-dollar question, right? Who really created Bitcoin? It's baffled the internet, investigative journalists, and tech enthusiasts for well over a decade now. But look, instead of chasing rumors or going down the rabbit hole of wild internet conspiracies, we're going to approach this logically. We're looking strictly at the source evidence to build a real, verifiable profile of the entity known as Satoshi Nakamoto. Section 1. The Ultimate Creator Profile. Okay, let's dive into this. To figure out who actually built this system, we essentially have to analyze the crime scene, and by that, I mean the Bitcoin network itself. You see, the architecture of the code leaves behind a very specific set of fingerprints. By looking at what was built, we can reverse engineer a highly accurate profile of the creator's required capabilities. And wow, when you look at the core code, we are basically stacking impossibilities here. It's not just about knowing these fields, it's about absolute mastery. First up, cryptography. And I want to stress this. They didn't just know how to use cryptographic tools. They had the deep theoretical knowledge to actually design them from scratch. Next, they needed a profound understanding of distributed systems, specifically peer-to-peer networks and consensus mechanisms. Third, strong engineering skills. They had to be capable of writing the original Bitcoin core code single-handedly. And finally, they needed a massive grasp of economics and game theory to design the incentive structures that keep the whole network secure. I mean, finding a top-tier cryptography engineer who's also an economics pioneer and a master programmer, that is exceptionally rare. But here's the kicker. Being a coding and math genius simply isn't enough. When you compare that technical identity to the required non-technical traits, the profile becomes even narrower. The creator required this intense, anti-authoritarian, decentralized ideology. Furthermore, they needed flawless operational security, like perfect anonymity. They had to possess the extreme discipline to communicate, publish, and lurk seamlessly on forums from 2008 to 2010 without making a single identifiable mistake. No slip-ups whatsoever. Section 2. The Top Suspect Lineup. So with this impossibly demanding psychological and technical profile, which real-world individuals from the early internet and cypherpunk communities actually fit the bill? Now, what's really interesting about this is that each of our top suspects brings a massive piece to the puzzle, yet each has a specific, undeniable fatal flaw. First, we have Nick Szabo. He is the mind, brilliantly conceptualizing the theories, but he lacks direct evidence of engineering the final code. Then there's Hal Finney. He represents the hands, a top-tier engineer who directly participated early on. His fatal flaw, though, there are clear public interaction records between him and Satoshi. Next, Adam Back. He provided the tech by inventing Hashcash, which is the core of Bitcoin's proof of work. But Satoshi actually reached out to contact him, meaning Back was the inspiration, not the creator. And finally, Len Sossaman. He has the vibe as an anonymous communications expert, but frankly, there's incredibly weak evidence of his direct participation in the project. And actually, just to quickly clear the air on a name you've probably heard in the media, Craig Wright. Based on the source analysis of technical capabilities and verifiable cryptographic proof, his evidence system has completely collapsed. So we can swiftly and decisively dismiss him from our analytical lineup and just cut straight through the noise. Let's look a bit closer at Nick Szabo for a second, our first suspect. Before Bitcoin, Szabo designed a decentralized digital currency system called BitGold. When you analyze BitGold, it's widely considered the direct theoretical blueprint for what Bitcoin eventually became. He perfectly blends the required cryptography and economic theory. That's exactly why Szabo is the perfect mind or designer behind the system, even if he lacks the final engineering fingerprints of the actual Bitcoin code. Section 3. The crucial contradiction. As we evaluate these brilliant minds against the evidence, we arrive at a glaring, unavoidable problem. It's what we call the locked room contradiction. When you synthesize all the data, you realize that finding one solitary human being who can independently write the entire system's code, theorize a flawless macroeconomic incentive model, and then pull off a perfect disappearing act without ever slipping up, it's virtually impossible. None of our suspects simultaneously satisfy all three of these historical requirements. Section 4. Piecing the puzzle together. Let's move on and see how this builds. Because if no single person perfectly fits the mold, we have to solve this mystery by looking at structural models rather than hunting for a lone individual. The source material lays out 3 theoretical structures for how the creation of Bitcoin could have actually occurred. Model 1 suggests a single core architect supported by early collaborators. Model 2 suggests a small team of equal partners working together. And Model 3 relies on the existence of a single, unprecedented lone genius. Let's evaluate which one actually holds up to reality. Model 1 is currently the most rationally accepted theory. Think of it like a giant pie. You have a massive 90% slice of the work being done by one highly centralized core architect. This person handles the overall design and writes the dominant share of the code, which perfectly explains why the original Bitcoin code looks so unified, as if it flowed from a single brain. Then you have a 10% slice made up of a few elite cryptography testers, like Hal Finney, who provided early feedback, bug testing, and interaction. This brilliantly accounts for the unified code while also explaining the very real early interactions Satoshi had with other cypherpunks. So you might be wondering, why not Model 2? Why not a small, equal partnership? Say Szabo doing the theory and Finney doing the coding. Well, the source highlights a massive flaw with Model 2: human nature. A small team of equals completely fails the zero leaks test. It is practically impossible for a group of equal partners to maintain absolute, flawless anonymity and not have a single leak for well over a decade. Someone always talks. Model 1 survives scrutiny because only one person holds the ultimate secret, while the helpers only know what the architect shares with them. Section 5. The true Bitcoin masterpiece. Having analyzed the who and the how, we really need to pivot to the why. Because understanding why Satoshi disappeared is actually much more important than uncovering their legal name. Here's our final synthesis based on the evidence. Satoshi Nakamoto is overwhelmingly likely a composite reflection of the cypherpunk era's best minds, structured around one heavily centralized architect. You have Nick Szabo acting as the brain, establishing the theoretical groundwork. You have Hal Finney acting as the hands, offering vital early implementation and testing. And you have other brilliant cypherpunks providing the missing mathematical puzzle pieces. So, the crucial point here is that absolutely zero individuals equal the complete, standalone entity we call Satoshi Nakamoto. The name is just a pseudonym. It masks an architect who stood on the shoulders of very specific digital giants. And this brilliantly illustrates the true genius of the entire invention. The creator's perfect disappearance, it wasn't a magic trick, and it wasn't a mystery waiting to be solved. It was actually the final necessary feature of the decentralized system itself. Think about it. If a decentralized currency has a known leader, it has a single point of failure. It has a CEO that can be pressured, arrested, or compromised. By vanishing completely, the architect ensured the network belonged entirely to its users. I want to leave you with this powerful thought drawn directly from our source analysis. Bitcoin's brilliance is that it completely eliminated the need to trust the founder. It just doesn't matter who wrote the code anymore, because the math verifies itself. But it does leave us with one final, fascinating question to ponder. In a world completely obsessed with fame and recognition, is Satoshi's silence the greatest feat of self-control in modern history? Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep questioning the systems around you.